I am. I like being on the back side of a camera and being very anonymous, so this is not really my my favorite place to be. So I recently went to Cuba, and my family and I went to Mexico for 10 days, and I flew on from Cancun to Cuba, which is about an hour's flight, because I believe it is still officially illegal for Americans and Americans and permanent resident aliens, which is my status, to go to Cuba. So that was the way I got around it, was to go via Cancun on Air Cubana, which, if you get a chance to fly with Air Cubana, I would recommend not doing it. One of the wings had, or the engine I was looking at out the window, had like a metal flap coming out of it, which had silver electrical tape around it. There were lots of holes on the engine as well, covered over in the same electrical tape. So that was a little bit scary. Anyway, so I went by Airbnb, or I stayed with somebody via Airbnb, which was a cheap and effective way of meeting somebody Cuban. And she also arranged somebody she knew who was German, who is engaged to a Cuban guy who was willing to be an interpreter and guide for me. So I had her help for 4 hours for a couple of days, 2 hours for a couple of other days, to take me around so I could see parts of Havana that otherwise I might not have found, because I'm naturally shy and probably would have stayed at home. So I have there's a piece of paper on everybody's chair with some information, just in case anybody is interested in coming back to any particular image. I hope you can read it. I should have made this text bigger. At the bottom there's a number. If you can't read the number and you want me to go back to one and say, hey, what number is that? And I'll tell you what number it is, so we can go back. And then at the bottom, if you are interested in ordering prints, that's something that I definitely would love to do, because that would allow me to have some money, which is something I like. Anyway, basically, I've got quite a few pictures here, and a lot of them I'm going to talk about a little bit, because they expose a little something about Cuban life, and I hope that I'll be able to tell you a little more about what it's like to be in Havana, because I am an absolute expert speaking no Spanish, and having spent 5 days there. I now know all about Havana. So this image, there are a lot of these bicycles, covered bicycles, which I think occur in other places in the world, but the taxis. And I just chose that image because it's got Cuba written on it. This was the first image that I shot in Havana. This is right around the corner from where I was staying. And it gave me the impression that everywhere I walked I was going to see Shay's face, but that actually turned out not to be the case, but that's rather a nice portrait of him, I think. And also a very typical Havana scene, bright colours and the sort of dereliction or semi-dereliction, the past glories of these buildings. If you have any questions, just shout. So, my guide and I, we walked this was very shortly after that last shot, but I think all of these are in temporal order. So the woman who was showing me around, she said, oh, here's a bookshop, pop in here. You go in and that's about the width of the whole room. This guy's in there and he's just like, oh, come in, and he's very keen for you to take photographs. Everybody in Cuba is keen for you to take their picture. They're so friendly. It was overwhelming how friendly they were. And often they will want a little bit of money afterwards, which seems reasonable because they're broke. So there are two forms of currency in Cuba. One is called the CUC, the Cuban something currency, and that's about 1-to-1 with the American dollar. And the other one is called MN, which is the national monetary system, and that's about 24 to $1. So I would usually give them about a CUC, and that's great because the average Cuban income is $35 a month. So for them to get the equivalent of $1 just to have their picture taken is pretty good for them. You know, I particularly like this because of the way it's shown. Really looks like Jesus in that picture. But clearly, I guess this guy is, they're a very cultured crowd, I think, the Cubans, and they really know a lot about the history and about the revolution, and a lot of them appear to really believe strongly in the ideals of the revolution. Whether they really do or not is anybody's guess, but I liked this image just because he was frozen in there. This is kind of a little bit up. Anyway, there's a lot of graffiti in Havana, as there are in a lot of cities. A lot of great graffiti. Apparently getting hold of paint is very difficult, so a lot of the graffiti will be not good quality paint and it'll fade away pretty quickly. On the right here it says Babylon is falling. Not quite sure what the message is there, but I love that. I love that picture very much. Skim through a few of these, more great graffiti that I saw. I'm a great fan of photographing graffiti wherever I see it. Angelic guy. I see the textures everywhere. I mean, you go out and you're taking pictures, and every which way you look is another photograph worth having. I love the fact it says Havana in the middle and the fella there. This was the hospital, and I love that Shay seems to be ridiculing this vehicle in the foreground. So these are based on motorbikes. They're actually converted motorbikes. They've built these shells and they're using as taxis. I guess gas is expensive, relatively, for them. So there are a lot of taxis. A lot of people don't own cars at all. I don't know if anyone can translate what that means. Something, but anyway. So, this reminds me. I try and put this delicately. No, and I got the runs really badly while I was there. And I talked to because they have universal healthcare. Everybody's really well looked after in terms of healthcare. But I asked my Airbnb host. I said, I'm suffering. Can I just go to a pharmacy and get some diarrhea medicine? And she said, no, you have to have a prescription. So you have to have a prescription for everything, including like ibuprofen. If you get a headache, you have to go to see a doctor because it's all free, but there's definitely a downside. And the reason I wanted to go to Cuba really was this. I've always been pretty much a socialist, as is my brother, my older brother. So he obviously infected me with that. But I'd always heard from the left, Cuba is wonderful. They have better healthcare, they have lower infant mortality, they have better education. So I'd always heard that from the left, and the right said, it's terrible, it's awful, the people are oppressed, and et cetera, it's a dictatorship. I really wanted to see what it was really like for myself. And so this was one of the positive aspects, I guess. This hospital was clearly, people were just coming and going, and it was, they were getting free healthcare. Downside is Shay, but, not that I'm opposed to Shay, he's pretty iconic, and I think he had some good ideas. Cars, I hope that we won't be seeing too many cars in this. Cars obviously are iconic, and they are mostly taxis. They're almost invariably taxis, in fact. And the way that it works is that there are particular routes through town that these taxis will take, but obviously they split off to multiple different places. But if you want to get a taxi, you'll stand at the side of the road and you'll hail a cab, and they'll stop, and you say, are you going to X? And they'll either say yes or no, and they just say no and drive off. But if they are going to where you want to go, you just jump in, and there may be up to 5 other people in there. So it's crowd in, everybody crowds in, and there's Cuban music playing really loud on the stereo, and they'll be smoking, and you're off, and they go pretty fast. But it's very jolly, and it's very jovial, and it's very communal. That was the thing I noticed most about this communist country, was how communal it was. Everybody was out and about. I was showing you those pictures that illustrate that better. Getting another car. I was just very happy with those black and white tones. So this is a very stereotypical image of Cuba. There are a lot of these women who hang around, mostly women, and they wear the traditional Cuban dress, and they absolutely hang out in the tourist areas. So I figured, well, I'll get one. They collect money for doing it, 1 or 2 coops. I just like the fact that her cigar is, because a lot of them, their cigars aren't even lit. So it's good to find this old woman who was definitely smoking that cigar. This was another case where we were walking down the street, and there was just a door, and I kind of put my head around, and there were some workmen in there, and Anise, who was my translator, was like, is it all right if I come in? Oh yeah, come in. And they don't worry about you wearing a hard hat or things falling on your head or whatever. You just went in and there was this car I thought was rather fantastic. That's the same interior. So you can see the trees are all growing up and just, I love it. I went to Detroit and this really reminds me of Detroit. Except Detroit isn't being strangled by the US. It's being strangled by itself. So this was yet another place. This is not a place, obviously, this is a person. But another place we saw, oh, come in. And like I say, they genuinely are friendly, but they do usually want a little bit of money, which, again, they're broke, so I don't resent that at all. This guy was mute. He'd had his voice box removed due to smoking. But he was a man who knew what needed to be photographed. So he's like, come. And he'd be pointing at everything that I had to photograph. So anyway, I got a shot of him. This was in the same place, spiral staircase going up, and you can see the definitely to code wiring at the top. This is again inside, so it's obviously this is all what was once amazing colonial housing, and which, when the revolution came along, was obviously it was all taken away from the rich people who had owned it, and now there'll be multiple families living in these apartments. And Anise was saying that it's possible with the opening up of Cuba that a lot of the relatives or the descendants of the people who owned these houses could come back, and it could cause all kinds of people come back and say, well, I still have the ownership papers for this house. So they don't really know what's going to go on, but there's shade down the bottom again, which was kind of what drew me to this image. So the guy, that same guy, this is his family, there's his wife's arms in the corner, this is his son watching TV. And he was absolutely determined that I had to take a photograph in here, and his son was absolutely determined that he did not want me to take a photograph. So I was feeling really awkward because it wasn't the great, I mean, it ended up being a good shot just because of the story that it tells, but I wasn't super excited about taking a picture in here, particularly just, here's a big idiot from the West who wants to take a picture of you. So. But his father was dumb. So I did what he wanted. Here's a market, indoor market. They have plantains, and there was meat over to the side here, which isn't included in the shop. And then they'll have a string and a bottle of water, which swings back and forth to keep the flies off the meat. So that was kind of interesting. And incredibly cheap. Oh, I like Shay poking around behind the price list. Can't really see the prices, but just insanely cheap, you know. And but a lot of it is rice and beans. People live a lot on rice and beans and plantains. It's cheap. This was an art gallery, so there's like I said, there's a lot of art, and there's a, you know. So this guy, this was how he was sitting, and then we asked if I could take his picture. He's like, oh yeah, and he kind of smiled. I said, no, just ignore me, carry on. So we went back to looking completely bored. But I just thought this was pretty great because this is actually a computer monitor that was working on the top here. And there's a keyboard. You can't see the keyboard, but no internet, so I don't really know what he was doing, maybe producing art. But just as amazing in interior with all this great art that these people are producing. So I don't know how many people know about the religion in Cuba. There is, it's officially an atheist country, but there is quite a lot of religion. A lot of it is Catholicism. And a lot of it is this other religion, which is a mixture of Catholicism and something else, I believe, and I don't really know a lot about it. All I know is that they dress in white for 3 years, purely in white, entirely in white, in order to become fully a part of this religion. So there are a lot of people like that, and a lot of cool young people with their cell phones all dressed up in white, and so I don't really know a lot more about it, unfortunately. I should tell you more. Oh, a car. Something I like to do, and I've done for a long time in photography, is what I call RGB, which is where any image that has some red, green, and blue in it, I call an RGB picture. And this was an inadvertent RGB. I noticed till the other day that it was RGB. Anyway, just a lot more texture in the car. One of the things that I really wanted to do when I went to Cuba was to do portraits of older people. I didn't do maybe as many as I would have wanted to, but they're always very happy, and they always make the same joke, oh, you'll break the camera. That joke is universal. But anyway, I like this old fella, and he was sitting outside his house, and so I got a shot of him. Many people know about the car, you know, that there are the cars, and people know that they are being constantly repaired. So although a lot of these are sort of 50s, or even, I guess the one on the left might even be 40s, vehicles originally, the engines have been changed. They rebuilt the engines completely, but everybody knows how to repair the cars. You'll see cars stopped at the side of the road, people underneath, they carry a big box full of tools, and everybody knows the basics of how to repair cars. Obviously this guy's a professional, but the Molokon is the, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, maybe somebody can correct me. It's the road that goes along by the front, by the sea, and it has this sea wall, and it's almost invariably, incredibly, like this. That's a descriptive word. No, how to spell it. And there's this art on it, which is a Cuban flag made up of jigsaw puzzle pieces, and I don't know, I had to have a closer picture of it somewhere, but it's like kind of disintegrating on the right, which again, somebody just put that up there, and I'm not sure of I don't know if it has a political meaning or what the meaning is behind it, but I thought it was rather lovely. Also like the way the water was pouring over the wall there. This is really very similar to the woman at the beginning with the cigar. He knew, one of the things I would love is to be smaller sometimes, so that I would not be so, me and my stupid hat and this belt that I wear that has all my stuff in it, I scream tourist, so he was like, oh! Again, that's fine, I haven't done many. But he clearly, I guess he grew the beard in order to look the part, and he certainly did. This is one I've shared on Facebook today, some of you may have seen. This is one of my favorite shots from the whole time. So, for those of you who didn't see it, people, as I say, are crushed together. People are squashed in their living environments. There may be 3 or 4 families in one apartment. And so my assumption, for which I have no actual evidence, but my assumption is that people come down to play musical instruments by the Molokon in order to not disturb the people that they live with. And this fellow here, he was really nice, very friendly. I gave him a cook. They all, you know. But the guy in the middle here is fishing with just a line. He doesn't even have a fishing rod. A lot of people did have rods, but he did not. And people were doing really well. Clearly a lot of fish to be had in this sea. And behind is the old Spanish castle and lighthouse, which to get to you have to either go through a tunnel in a taxi, or you can get a ferry, which costs 40 cents MN. And you think 1 MN is about 4 cents US. So 40 cents is less than 2 cents for the ferry. So that's a good side of socialism. But this, I was saying on Facebook today, seems to represent an inadvertent good of Cuba, which is that there is no space. They don't have room to play their instrument at home, so they're forced out of the house to come down here. And they don't have enough food to eat, so they're forced to go fishing. But they're all chatting, and they're all friendly, and they genuinely seem to be having a good time. Maybe I'm being naive, I'm sure. Ben Carson would tell me I was being naive, but they genuinely seem to be happy. They're not at home writing bitchy tweets on Twitter. They're out having a good time and being communal. Sploosh! That's all I have to say about that. Sploosh. I got another one where there were 2 joggers running out of the way of a splash, but I just like the lights and everything. I love these 2 kids. This was later in the evening, it was getting dark, and I don't know, they see you and they definitely want to have their photos taken. And while in Mexico, I read a book that said the kids, one of the things that they don't have a lot of in Cuba is toys. The kids just don't have toys. If there's there'll be 5 or 6 kids playing with a broken soccer ball. So they said, take whatever you can. So I got lots of plastic pterodactyls and crabs and all these little plastic toys. I think a lot of them, they were pretty disappointed when they got a plastic crab instead of a kook, but what can you do? So, and I love this car in the background too. I don't know, it looks like a fossil or something. So this is evidence of another religion, which is based on voodoo. It's again a mixture of Catholicism and voodoo, but this is apparently the result of some kind of a religious ritual. I also saw a pigeon with its head cut off lying in the street, which again is part of a ritual apparently. I don't know, what can you do? Another instance of Shay that I just really liked. A lot of these markets, incredibly cheap. And one of the things that a niece really wanted to do with me was to take me to different areas to show that it's not all utter poverty. This was actually a relatively rich area of Havana with a lot of meat markets and a lot of quite nice houses. Well, a lot of markets in general. This is obviously plantains as well. 3 levels of schools in Cuba, same as here. And I think this is the youngest age. They each have their own uniform, different national colours of uniform. So cute kids, and you can see teacher in the background and inside. All free education, all apparently very high quality education, but then unfortunately you've got a very educated workforce and not actually a lot of work. So, and being a socialist country, if you don't have private work, and there's not all that much private work, then the government gives you work to do. And I didn't get a shot of him, but there was a meat market, basically. It was like a hole in the wall. And there was a guy in there on his iPhone, and he had no meat, but the government was paying him to come in, so he came in and sat and played Angry Birds or whatever he did. And being a socialist country as well, they say, everyone will be supplied with food. You'll all get, everything will be great. There'll be cigarettes, there'll be coffee, there'll be food, there'll be beans and rice. But often there are not these things. And the euphemism they say is it got lost. Oh, coffee got lost, or the beans got lost. In this case, the meat got lost, because there just wasn't any. So, anyway, kids in school. This is just another case where, I was going to say where he was fixing his car, but I don't think he's fixing his car. I think he's just getting his shopping out the back of the house. Anyway, street scene, Cuba. Another old person. I love that my camera has a little, the screen folds out, so I can surreptitiously photograph people, because I just stick a camera in their faces, so I like to be deceitful about it, I guess. Anyway, little old lady, little old man. I don't know, there's something proud about him with he likes his motorbike. Oh yes, he does. 3 school kids of the same age, I guess, same, yeah. And the ball that the kid on the left is holding, I gave to them. They seemed really pleased. In fact, the book said, they love it if you bring toys. That's really what they want. They really love it if you can bring toys. And I read online, don't take them toys. They all have expectations, and it teaches them to beg. And every time I throw them the modern dial-up modem, so which you may remember, but it allowed me to tell my wife I was still alive, which I think was rather nice. But what they do have is Wi-Fi hotspots in the middle of town. And so being on the internet is a very communal activity as well. So this is what its Wi-Fi hotspot is outside a hotel, an international hotel. And so they all come down here, and they all have their cell phones or their laptops. I love that this guy on the left is using a laptop, standing up. And you can buy a card which allows you a certain number of minutes. You can buy minutes, basically. And I think I have a photograph, in case I don't, I'll tell you anyway. What happens a lot is now they've only, it was July of this year that normal Cubans were allowed to get on the internet. So you get all these people with a phone, 2 people with a phone, 1 earbud each, and they're talking to their relatives in Miami who they perhaps have never seen before. And they're all waving into the phone. It's really quite touching. Just more graffiti. Fantastic. I love graffiti. I love graffiti when people are creative like this. There's just something about the guy on the left. He's too cool for school, clearly. And the guy next to him is clearly trying to talk to him. And again, I'm sure that I'm being naive, I don't know the language, and I'm sure there is racism, but it just seems like there really wasn't. Everybody just seemed to be mixed together. You saw a group of kids, half of them would be of Spanish descent, half of them would be of Spanish slave descent, presumably, of African descent. And they all seem to get on very well. And they're all super sexy. This is the crazy thing about Cuba. The number of attractive people is just extraordinary. Clearly he thinks that she's one of them, I guess. I love this picture as well. Being in Cuba really changed my outlook on life, and I did a lot of soul searching. I don't want to be on Facebook bitching about that's not okay, you're not allowed to say that, what about my right, etc., etc. It just didn't seem to be any of that here. And admittedly, you know, she may be rolling her eyes and super irritated with what he's doing, but it just seemed to be so much going on that people didn't have time to be getting really het up about stuff. So, anyway, I loved all his buckets, and I love the fact that he clearly likes her, and I love this woman on the right here, and the person on the left looking through the door. Anyway, I like this picture. Car with no wheel. This was another guy, you'll break the camera if you take my picture. So I didn't. Another evening shot of the Malacan fishing. And I'll skim through several of these. This I really liked. The evening was coming on and these guys up on the roof having a party or hanging out with their friends, whatever. And the moon. So that's nice. There's definitely a story to this one. This was early in the evening, and again, people of all different racial backgrounds all having a good time and just playing baseball. Baseball is huge. Soccer is becoming bigger, but baseball is really what they're obsessed with. So I was standing there and I got this shot. That ball then came, pow, got me right in the stomach. Fortunately, it was more of a tennis ball than a baseball. So, but they were just, this kid was just mortified that he'd hit me with the ball. So they were hugely apologetic. Here we go. This is more like, you know, the repairing, endlessly repairing their cars, and everybody seems to get together to help to work out how to get the car going again. And I loved, for about 2 weeks before I arrived, it had just been raining and raining and raining. It had just been terribly wet, as it was in Mexico where we were in Cancun, and it was insane. And it had just got sunny again, and so all the washing was coming out. The whole city was just covered in brightly coloured laundry all hanging out to dry.
When were you there?
I got back 2 weeks ago.
What month?
End of October.
Last year?
2 weeks ago. No, this year. 2 weeks ago.
So is that monsoon season?
Yes. Yeah. Anise suggested March was the best time to go there, when it's not too hot and it's not too rainy. So. Inside a taxi, late at night. This is Anise's fiance's ear on the right. So anyway, that was just, you know, music blaring and the cars all coming at you. This is just a school playing field that I walked by and saw this guy working in this same place. And I used to live in Edinburgh in Scotland for 10 years, and this just looks like Edinburgh, apart from the palm trees. Otherwise, yeah, that horizon, that skyline, it's like Edinburgh. A lot of this graffiti, and there's some political graffiti, which it's interesting because it's more government approved, but here we've got the 99%, and written all over the creature is the names of big companies, you know, BMW and Monsanto, etc., being pulled down by the 99% as he's trying to eat the world, I guess. So, that was interesting. I just like the dog. There are cats and dogs everywhere, and none of them are fixed. Clearly there are going to be more and more cats and dogs, which isn't that positive from my point of view, because I like cats and dogs. Later in the evening, this was the image that I used to try and attract people to come down and see this show. So So I wanted to show the negative as well as the positive. There's quite a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of people, and the smell of these dumpsters, it was indescribable, and so to see people rooting through them was disheartening. But it's not like we don't have homelessness in this country too. But so definitely it was not all positive. And then same here. Once you get old in Cuba, there's not a lot to do, really. There's a lot of people are retired and they're then really poor, they're desperately poor. So this seemed to sum that up for me. As does this, I guess. Old fella in his wheelchair. This, on the other hand, was something that Anise really wanted to show me. Modern shopping centre. Looks like somewhere in Seattle, perhaps. But what I thought was funny was the walkways are sloped, so it's a spiral.
Wow.
And I think the shops are given out, allocated by the government. So I guess it's just unfortunate if you are the person at the very top that nobody ever gets up to. It was bad luck. But very few advertisements or billboards in Cuba, but a few more in here, a little bit more. Just the street scene. People stop and they talk. People hang out the windows, blah, 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 and they just, everybody knows everybody else, so everybody stops and talks to everybody else. Hey goon, silly old man. You'll break my camera, he said, as usual. So anyway, I liked his old, I assume it's a hearing aid, old style. This guy was refilling cigarette lighters, exclusively. He was the only one for probably a block and a half who was doing that. I love this picture. This was just partly because of the exuberance, because she's happy to be out of school or whatever, but partly, mostly just because I know that I got my camera, and I just caught it. I didn't check the settings, and I managed to get it, and it worked out really nicely. Again, I love, Cuban lunch. This is and Cuban breakfast. A lot of the time is cheese and meat in a roll. And anyway, another nice, handsome fellow.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Vultures. So this is a really tall, I think it's a hotel actually, and just they're surrounded all the time. I don't know if they can be nesting some time of year. I don't know what they were doing, but there were a lot of them. And this was probably 9 o'clock at night, and out in the street they pull out these tables and they pull out the chess and they pull out the dominoes, and Superman sits down to play. Again, racially diverse. I couldn't get over how that just ooh, which one's better? Reading a book by the Malacan. People come out and they hang out at night, and it's warm as well, of course. I mean, can't completely condemn Bellinghamsters for staying in their house. It's not as warm as it is in Havana. Why have I got 2 of each of these? You call that. Just some fella collecting. I'm not sure he was collecting. But here he is again. I love this one. I don't know how well you can see it, but he appears to be, it's a bit Romeo and Juliet, I think. He's wooing this woman up top, and there's her sister on there. You can just see her silhouette. So I don't know, it kind of reminds me of a Spike Lee movie or something. There's definitely something going on there. As there is here, boozers boozing it up. These bars are everywhere, the beer is cheap. But what they don't have is throwaway cutlery and throwaway cups. They don't have disposable cups at all, or plates or anything like that. If you want a coffee to go, you bring your own cup. And people don't. The thing with Cuban coffee is very small, very strong, and very sweet. Lots of sugar in it. It's actually really good. But it comes in a tiny little cup. People will go up and they throw a coin down, and they're off real quick. So people don't really do. This is the Capitol. People said it was. She said it was based on the White House, but isn't it the White House, does it? Anyway, it's all being repaired right now because they suddenly got a big influx of money, and I'm trying to remember why. It's something to do with the Pope's visit. Anyway, they got a whole load of money, so there's a lot of these official buildings are all being renovated. That's there. So there are, as well as these rotten old buildings, lots of, well, not rotten, but beautiful textural buildings. These amazing, this is the one and only Russian Orthodox church. And I don't know how well you can see, but I like the fellow here. And yeah, this was on the ferry going across. We went to a market across the river. I almost said the Bosphorus, but that's Istanbul. So just some women on the ferry. Another downside of Cuba, power production is a dirty business in Cuba. This was the market. Poor pig who didn't quite make it, sadly. Again, flies, a lot of flies, and he said, you know, she knows places where they sell meat, but it's all refrigerated. She says, you know, if you're not Cuban, you probably don't want to risk. If you're not used to eating, it could be. Again, poor turkeys, not long for this world, and put inside these plastic bags to restrict their movements, I guess. But the guy on the right, the darker guy there, is their owner, and looks kind of rueful. Like, but yeah, I fear they weren't long for this world. He looks a bit appalled at how much they want for an avocado. Avocados are cheaper than onions. That's something we were told. And huge, I mean, they're enormous. But I liked his face. I have a friend who does cartooning, and he draws people, many people, not like that. Small birds. A lot of people love to buy small birds. They're really cheap, and that's what these guys are going to sell. Look at them all. They're all so sexy. What's it all about? I was always amazed. I kept taking pictures, and then afterwards I look at them and I go, oh, he was actually completely looking at me. He knew I was taking these pictures. I really like them. I like this one a lot. So that's on the 2-cent ferry. Another portrait at a bar, or a coffee bar, I think. A foot. Another of these bookshops. A lot of dusty books. If you want to read about Raul Castro or Robin Hood. Or the Nazis, apparently, in the bottom left there. That's the place to go. No, we did not see this one. This is Domino's again. So, yeah, I think that that says a lot about, I don't know if there's actually oil in that. I guess there must be. I guess he must carry it around. Anyway. Kids having a lot of fun in the streets. So he was really proud of his plastic bag, I have to say. And I love the guy in the background, the kid in the background. Yes. Super great. This tells us a lot about the nutrition in Cuba. But he did like his box, and he was pulling it around on a string. And I think his friend liked his box too. So anyway, they seem to be having a reasonably good time, even though this kid looks like he could use a Big Mac or two. I love these kids. These kids are great. Especially the guy on the left who only has one. He only has one rollerblade. And these kids were doing. They were painting each other's fingernails, having a good time of it. Again, beautiful Cubans, lots of them. And this was right by the Wi-Fi hotspot. I think she had got lucky in her apartment. Probably got Wi-Fi actually in the apartment, which is kind of nice. So here are those kids again on their rollerblades, and this is the entryway or the entry hall of an apartment block. There's one of the residents on the left. People in America would not put up with this. They just go in and they're all rollerblading around in the spotlight. There they are again. I thought these kids were great. And they had an audience. These are kids looking into that area, watching them all skating around. Okay, on the other side of Cuba, this was down by where the richer fancy tourist hotels were, and this kind of upscale restaurants with this guy chewing his fingernails outside. This was a place where I finally plucked up courage on my own to order lunch, and I ordered a pizza which came on a piece of cardboard, and you kind of fold it in half and then all the grease rolls out the far end and you get it all over your bare feet and super hot. Anyway, I think this guy is having a coffee actually, a little coffee. A guy. These things they carry large amounts of produce around on, or boxes and whatnot on these. They drag them around, but until the kids get hold of them. A house with no wall. So this probably was one building, and that would have been the like a balcony or something, and they made it into a separate house by putting the spiral staircase up the outside. I don't know if you, I think you can probably see this, noughts and crosses. Noughts and crosses? You call it noughts and crosses in this country, right? No, tic-tac-toe, thank you, tic-tac-toe. Chalk tic-tac-toe on the street, so it really is like stepping back in time. You know, kids are playing tic-tac-toe with chalk on the street. Just an old guy with some, I don't know what's going on with his face, but he's got a white spot on it. Anyway. Yuma is the Cuban word for not just foreigner, but for big fat useless American tourist, basically. So I was proud to proclaim myself Yuma. We're almost at the end here. It's like this contemplative look, and the fact that he's got a key above his head. And I love this one. I don't know how easy it is to tell on this image, but there are these two dogs fighting down here, while this cat makes his way across the roof. And that's Santa Maria, I think it's called. The tower in the background is the Catholic cathedral. Oh, those guys. I invented swag! So they rely a lot on charitable donations of clothes, I think. So a lot of people, I saw a lot of hilarious, unintentionally hilarious t-shirts. This big, muscly black guy in a t-shirt with a Union Jack on it, and it says, "I am the Queen." Lots of Union Jacks, lots of Union Jacks. I don't know why, I don't know if the British send a lot of clothes, but a lot of people wearing Union Jacks. Maybe they really like Britain, I don't know. Anyway. Oh, and I don't know if you can see, but he's wearing a United States Marine Corps t-shirt, which I don't really believe he was in the United States Marine Corps, but he really, he was funny. He wanted to talk to me, he found out I was from Britain. They all thought I was German for some reason, I think because I was so tall, they all thought I was German, but he found out I was British. And then he just wanted to list all the British companies that he knew. Rolls-Royce. I said, yeah, Rolls-Royce. Yeah. Norton, yes. And then he started going on about Maserati. No, I don't think Maserati. Ferrari. No. Anyway, he played his guitar for me and they gave it to me. And these two little girls were dancing, doing total North American pop dance moves. And it made me very nervous taking pictures of kids there, especially when their dad came out and was kind of looking up and down the street. But it's a really hard thing to get over, but they just have they don't mind at all. They don't seem to have any fear that, you know, you have malicious intent. So, but it's a difficult thing to get over, you know. You don't really want to. And I think that is all of the 106 images that I thought were worth showing. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be more, yes?
How often did you see yourself coming the other way?
See myself coming the other way? Do you mean other people who are similar to me?
Yeah.
Not a lot. There weren't very many photographers there. I did not see very many. I saw a few down by the Malacan. In fact, down at the Malacan, the sunset is glorious. It faces the right way to get the sunset. And then I went down, there were 5 or 6 people with cameras. But in general, no, not many. Down at the touristy areas, there were more. But they didn't seem to be super camera ready. They were all, I don't know, I guess they were just tourists. I don't know, they had their phones, they were taking pictures and whatnot, but there was one hotel we went to which was super grand and totally air conditioned, and we went there to change money, and it was a really strange feeling going from places like this and just within 5 minutes walking into this enormous place where Hemingway had stayed, and it's all air conditioned, and there's tinkly piano music, and it's a really strange feeling. So not a lot of photographers. I'm sure it will change. I guess it will change. Anyone else?
How long were you there for?
Oh, I was there for 5 full days. So I spent a lot of time walking, a lot of walking.
How short is the window before Cuba changes?
Cuba's already changing. Until 2011, you weren't allowed to own property.
Yeah.
So nobody owned a house. And then I should have, there was one picture I meant to add to this and I didn't, which is of a payphone, and it's got a notice on it for sale, apartment or to rent. People are renting out apartments, people are selling apartments. It used to be totally strictly, you were given an apartment by the government. Now that's changing. Now with the internet opening up. So my host, so I was saying $35 is the average income monthly. My host through Airbnb was charging $35 a night, and she had 4 rooms, so she was raking it in. They had a flat screen TV, and her 15-year-old son seemed to be in almost every night watching TV. So I think once this all opens up, I fear this communal life is going to go, and I think that's a great shame. But the nice thing was that my host could have run Airbnb in a much cheaper way for herself. She made my bed every day, she gave me a big breakfast with omelette every day, every morning, and she employed several local women to help. Who is nominated as the defender of the revolution. And so if you're not pulling away, if you're not cleaning up the sidewalks, if you're not keeping your house clean, they can report you to the upper government, and you can get yourself in trouble. Much like living in a gated community in the United States, I guess. So, and I don't know, it maybe keeps the place clean.
What's the attitude
Towards the people in the CDR?
Yeah, the rats.
I don't know. I didn't get to talk to anyone about that, but there was a lot of graffiti saying, "Viva la CDR," and but and he said actually the government puts a lot of that up itself. So,
Did you run across street music and musicians?
yes, quite a lot of that. Not as much as I thought I might do. I may have been in the wrong areas, but there certainly was there was certainly a lot of people playing the trumpet or playing the saxophone. That guy with the guitar, a lot of that, individual people just out on the street playing, not a lot of groups of people that I saw. Maybe surprising, maybe I was just, and most of the restaurants are really, really cheap, hole-in-the-wall places, but there are also places where, like I was going to these places where I would get the chicken dish that I attempted to replicate with green beans, plus rice and black beans, 2 beers, and a plate of fries, which I ordered by mistake because they talk so fast. It's really hard to catch, even when I don't really speak Spanish. And it's like the equivalent of $8, $8.50, and that's when you think 35 is the average monthly income. It's absolutely out of the range of these people. So, and the first time I went there, I put a 20 down on the plate, with the bill that said $8.50. And that shot, there's a wide angle shot where you can see the street. And I thought, oh, that looks great. So I took a photograph, which included the table with the 20 on the bill and the street. And they went away and they brought me back change from a 10. And I had been warned that this sometimes would go on, that they would, oh, no, especially if they thought you didn't speak English. And I don't know, it may have been a genuine mistake, but I said, I gave you a 20. No. So, showed the back of my camera. And they're, oh, all right. So as my devious wife said, that's a great plan to make money. You take a photograph like that and then you actually give them a 10. Because if there's one thing you want to do with poor people, it's rip them off. So basically that's all I have to say. So I have put these slips of paper out. If anyone has any interest, they can certainly come and talk to me afterwards, or I'm happy to show you any of the pictures again. I don't expect anyone to buy anything, but if you are interested, I'm a great salesman.
Another question. It seems like you spend most of your time just kind of walking about. Did you ever, I'm assuming you felt really comfortable with your camera?
Absolutely. It's one of the, I believe it's one of the safest places, I don't want to say in the world, but it's extremely safe. It relies heavily on tourism, so the government has no truck with anyone disabling tourism. My niece and my host said, oh, if you go down to the market, you really want to be careful with your camera bag. And I have my camera straight across my shoulder, and I'm not, I guess, and run off it. But no, I never felt. We were very poor areas. I never felt any.
Thank you so much. Just beautiful photos are amazing. Really
Oh, you're very welcome.
inspiring. I'd love to see them again.
Okay, well, as of tonight, I will. You're all signed up to the event, I assume. I think of the event. Sorry, enjoy. But if you go there, I'll put a link up to the group, which will be on Flickr. I use Flickr to display my photographs. And all 305 pictures, I think it was, that I ended up working up will be on there, so you can go through and feel free to get in touch if you have any interest in any images, or if you have any questions. Facebook's obviously a great place.
Well done.
There's a box at the end for the donations for the food bank.
That's right, yes. If you haven't already put $2 in the box, if you can afford to do that, I volunteer for the food bank. I like.
Sometimes it's
So
expensive.
there's a box with Cuba written on it on the end table there.
Yeah, it's not about doing that. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So